Welcome to Pat's Cast, the unofficial Regina Pats podcast. This is our 24-25 season preview. We got Kevin, we got Drew, and we got Dante here, the usual suspects. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good to see everybody.
Thank you so much for having me after a very long summer. I'm excited to have hockey here and ready to go.
Hockey is back. That's all that matters.
Yeah, it's here. Puck drops on Friday. And we're here to talk about kind of a little bit of the off season, what we saw at camp, and going into the new season. Some things are looking up, aren't they? True.
Yeah, I mean, I only got a chance to see the blue and white game, but there was definitely a few of the younger guys that impressed me with the way that they played. The poise that they had for their age was impressive. One of those guys would be Zach Lansard, I thought. He's a young 16-year-old, but he makes decisions like he's a few years older than he is, and didn't put up any points in the preseason, but he's got some good hockey sense on him, and that's always exciting to see with a 16-year-old.
Who did you like, Dante?
Honestly, for me, I was really impressed with Christian LaSalle, to be quite frank. I mean, this is a guy who competes, who battles hard, and I know he's only 5'9", 170 pounds, and he's a listed player that the Pats recently just signed just out of training camp, but he's somebody who plays like he's 6'2", 6'3". Is he going to get to 6 foot by the time he's 19, 20 years old? I don't think so. I think he's going to be, that 5'9", 5'10 type player, but just because you're 5'9 or 5'10 doesn't mean you can't play bigger than that. He has the more compete than some guys that are 6'5". And, I had a nice conversation with Dale Durkach about this, who obviously feels really passionate about those smaller players because he was a small player. And he doesn't always just look at someone's size and stuff like that and say, okay, well, this guy is going to be a beast on the ice in terms of his compete and his grittiness and how tough he plays and how tough he is to play against, right? Because there are gentle giants out there. There are guys that don't have those intangibles despite having that size. And I feel that Christian LaSalle does lack the size, but he doesn't lack the compete. He doesn't lack the heart. He has hockey sense that goes along with his game. I've been really impressed with how he's played. He did get rewarded with a goal in Assiniboia in the preseason. I thought that was really neat, and he's made this Pats regular season roster. I think, as Drew alluded to, Zach Lansard is obviously an easy first pick. I thought Cameron Kuzma is going to be a really good two-way center down in the next couple of years. I was really impressed with Zach Moore. I was really impressed with Logan Peskett, the way he came back. 10 goals last season. Maybe he can push 15 or 18 goals this year. I think that would be kind of an easy,
Step.
Yeah, maybe a nice step for him. Maybe a good expectation for him to get there. Cole Temple, the numbers speak for itself this preseason. I think that he's looked a lot better than he did last year. So, yeah, I really like.
He's another year older, so you should.
Yeah, exactly. And I like Dane Deschamps as well. I like Braden Smith. Deschamps, another guy who has a lot of compete in his game, and that's what you need out of your D, right? They don't take shifts off, which is nice.
Yeah. Deschamps is the one guy I really liked in the first preseason game. It's the only hockey I saw this fall, but I was impressed with him. Not only the compete, but the puck moving skills. It was the young guy's game out there, but he was making smart decisions, moving the puck very well. So that's nice to see right there. Kevin,
I agree with pretty much everything Dante said. I really did like LaSalle and the fact that he's a smaller guy and he made his
mark to get
and he made the team. So
he obviously impressed enough to get a contract, right, or to be signed, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like what Dante said with the defense, Deschamps and Smith, they both look like veterans out there already. So that's good. And Sam LaPlante, he's had moments for a rookie. So.
Yeah, and don't forget about Cohen Clausen, guys.
And Clausen, too. I was going to say Clausen, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as you look ahead to this roster, there's 27 guys currently on it right now with the reassignment of Madden Malacca and, of course, Zane Rowan being placed on 20-year-old waivers, with the Pats having 4 overagers now cutting down to 3. They're going to have to find ice time for some of these younger players, and I think you don't want to give ice time away to give ice time away from Corbin Allman, Cole Temple, some of the 16-year-old players on your team, especially some of these 17-year-old players that are here, such as the 07s that the Pats have currently with Allman, Temple, Deschamps, and Smith. And then you look also ahead to some of the 06s who I think are going to need a little bit more ice time this year because they'll be 19 years old next year and they'll be asked to have a much greater role. And I know that their role this season will be much greater. That's a Zach Moore as an example. That's a Logan Peskett as an example. Where does Drew Mushimansky fit into things? I'm not sure just yet. There's a lot of players fighting for spots still. Just because you've made the opening night roster doesn't mean that's where you'll sit. There's still guys fighting for spots, and essentially it's in the players' hands right now. There's a lot of depth up front. Myself and Kelly Rempel spoke with Alan Miller about that, and Alan said he really likes the depth up front. Like, he really, really likes the forwards. And I think everybody in this room could agree there is a lot of depth up front with the forwards.
Yeah, I think especially with not losing any older guys, like you said, other than Rowan, your 20s were all on D, so there isn't much turnover up front. So there's going to be some decision to have to be made if you want to get some of these young guys more ice, right? Some of these older guys are really going to have to play well to earn their ice, right? Like you said, like a Drew Mushimansky, you look at a guy like Shantz or even a Wilson, Lawlicker, like these guys really are, I'd say, on the bubble, right?
Yeah, especially because, I mean, when you look at the forwards, the top six is really locked up with Howe, Whitehead, Spencer, Aremba, and even Jackson Vaughn, and then Cole Temple, if he plays well enough, can move up into the top six roles. So it's going to be a push for the bottom six, and there's probably 5 20-goal scorers on this team if Jackson Vaughn can improve on his 15-goal total from last year. So, that's just to that point that Dante made. There is a lot of depth up front, and slowly but surely things are coming together, especially for the forward group.
The potential is definitely there if everybody can take a step. Young guys, old guys, if everybody can take a step from last year, there is a lot of depth there.
Well, you're going to be without Tanner Howe for the first 3 games of the season. We're not sure when Jackson Vaughn will come back from the Anaheim Ducks training camp. And same with Corbin Vaughn with the LA Kings training camp. I mean, those 2 players can probably play pro one day, so I'm not surprised, potentially, if an NHL team decides to keep those guys around a little bit longer because they do play a pretty heavy game, and they could probably maybe play up with some of the pro guys. So that'd be neat for those 2, but that means there's going to be some ice time and roster spots available in the next couple of games for the Pats.
Hence, they got to step up. The young guys have got to step up. And like I said, the old guys have to too.
Everybody's got to step up. If you want a spot, you got to earn it, right?
Yeah, we didn't mention Anthony Wilson as well. Like, there's so many guys on this roster. There's a lot of 19s. There's a good amount of 18-year-olds. There's 17-year-olds fighting for spots. There's 16-year-olds fighting for spots. The 20-year-olds are locked in. I mean, everyone else, just like I always say, it's really going to come down to their play, their performance, and their work ethic. It really is going to come down to who wants it the most. And then that's going to essentially say where you fall in the lineup, correct?
Yeah, it's nice to see now that the Pats have draft capital and they've been able to acquire these picks, and Miller's done a really good job of that and bringing in talent that's going to push these other guys, these older guys. So that's nice to see.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it creates a lot of internal competition.
Yeah, that's what you want.
There's a lot of forwards. And there's guys that the Pats had to reassign that I really like, but they're just too young. They're 15, as an example, right? So, looking ahead to the future of this team, there is a good amount of 05s that could return next year as 20-year-olds, but there's a lot of 06s. Like, the nucleus of your team is almost there right now, and that's what I like the most about this group. Also, another thing that I've taken into consideration is the Eastern Division and the Eastern Conference right now. I think outside of Medicine Hat, there's no clear juggernaut. Like, Medicine Hat's probably going to win 50 games this year. I'd bet my bottom dollar on that.
Probably more than 50. Probably closer to 60.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah.
But is PA 2 like where like
they'll be up there?
Is Brandon 3 like what's going on, right? So
there's
going to be a lot of parity.
Definitely, right? There isn't going to be 2 or 3 teams that are just going to run with it. It's going to be kind of wide open past Medicine Hat.
And I think that, maybe it opens the door for the Pats a little bit in the Eastern Division specifically with Moose Jaw and Saskatoon obviously not being what they were last year and PA and Brandon being the favorites in the division, but not as heavy hitters as those 2 teams were last year in Moose Jaw and Saskatoon. So if the Pats can take that step with those forwards, and one thing I noticed in the last preseason game that I did was Kelton Pine, even though he took the loss, he looked really good and poised to take that starting role with some of the saves that he made. So
he was unbelievable.
If you've got him playing like that in net, and obviously Colton Bridgman, who was really good last year, and Corbin Vaughn comes back to be your two best defensemen, and then if those forwards take a step like we just talked about a few minutes ago, then hey, you never know where the Pats could finish in the East Division, with it definitely not being as strong of a division as it was last year.
Yeah, that's a good lead into the defense, right? You know, there's again more depth there, not as much experience. Definitely gonna have to be a big step for some of these guys. Losing 320s, but bringing in John Babcock, that's a nice add just to shore up or
bring some veteran leadership.
Yeah,
I really like John Babcock.
Yeah,
like I adore him. I think he's one of the most favorite overage players I've ever had, and I've been around in my career.
Okay, yeah.
You know, like he's a guy that cares about the players, cares about winning, cares about the team, and he just got here. I've only known him for a month, and just the interactions that I've had with him being around the team and how he treats the younger players, how he treats his teammates, how he's there to help them, try to be a mentor. He's tried to do a lot of team building activities with the kids as well, with the other players, whether it's playing manhunt and stuff like that. I thought that was really neat. I just wanted to share that, guys. Like, I have nothing but amazing things to say about John Babcock.
That's good.
Like, he's a character guy.
Yeah.
Like, is he the best defenseman in the Western Hockey League? No, probably not. Is he going to be very good for this team? Yes. The Pats, in my opinion, lacked leadership last year.
Sorry, Dante, this is a guy that had a deep playoff run, too.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, I know he didn't play every game in the spring, but, you know, if he's on a team that has motivations to make the playoffs in the next couple of years again, then that's just so much value there, too. He's gone to the conference final, and he knows what it takes to get there.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
Let's rewind it back to training camp. We forgot to talk about one player. The kid with the white helmet, the tall, skinny, lanky kid that was in every scrum, passing the puck, playing like a 20-year-old.
Well, you noticed him before me, so what did you think?
I didn't know who the kid was. I had no idea. He was a list player, Owen Senya. No clue who he was, and he was in there like a dirty shirt.
Let me stop you there. He wasn't a list player until 3 days into camp.
An invitee. Sorry about that.
He wasn't listed yet.
He was so... I just didn't know what to expect from him. Looking at his Elite Prospects profile, it was just a profile. There's nothing special about it, but the Pats saw something in it, and then Dante told me who he was, and then he said, oh, yeah, this is his stats. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, those AA numbers were insane.
260-something points.
Yeah.
And this year he's got over 20 points in like 6 games.
Yeah. So obviously a smart hockey player to be able to do that.
Well, I don't know how good the competition is. He's playing for his dad's academy that he has out there, and I heard they're just dominating teams. But I nonetheless, everybody sees the player that he can become.
But I didn't even know anything about this kid, and he was in there like a dirty shirt. He
stood out to
little skinny, tall and skinny.
Okay.
In every scrum against the veterans, against the kids, it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, he didn't look at a place, that's for sure. I think he got a little bit fatigued as camp went along, but he had skated the most out of anybody.
Yeah, and he was also like 130 pounds, soaking wet. Probably,
so
he's a scrawny
from what I
guy.
understand from talking to Alan Miller, he first caught the eye of the coaching staff at fitness training. They were like, okay, like, hold on a minute, like, who is this guy? They saw him do his beep test. I believe he was like in the top 5, right? So they're like, okay, this guy's physique is there. Okay, his dad's a former NHLer. Okay, but his dad played college, so maybe you're a little skeptical, right?
Yeah, he's an American, right? Too,
yeah.
So,
but when they, I guess, approached to signing him, and his dad was full on board of, no, I love the Western Hockey League. I want my son to play in the Western Hockey League, right? That's a big commitment to make at 15 when, A, you've never been drafted by this organization. You've only been at the rink in City for 5 days. Like, you don't know that much about the team, yet the Pats put that much of an impression on, A, someone who played at the college level, won the Hobie Baker Award in Peter Sejna, played in the NHL, won championships in Switzerland, I believe, with Davos, right? Won the Spangler Cup many different times, has been around for a long time, and yet the Pats made that big of an impact on, A, his son Owen, and B, the family when he was just a free agent invite, wasn't drafted, wasn't listed until a few days into camp, and then was signed on Monday. kudos to the Regina Pats. Hats off to Alan Miller, Dale Durkach, and the coaching staff to make this kid feel within, essentially, it's September 17th when we're recording this podcast. In 3 weeks' time, yes, I want to be a Pat. In 3 weeks, when you have some other kids that the Pats draft in years past, right, a.k.a. a Matthew Wood, who hum and haw for years and years, and then they go to college route anyway, this kid believed in the Pats, believed in the development model and what they offer, and said, nope, I'm going to play in the Western Hockey League. I'm not going to play college. Hats off to the Regina Pats and what they did, because they did something right.
Hold on there.
What?
Maybe he will play college too. You never know.
Well,
Maybe.
that's
Things are changing.
Down the road.
Big news this week. Braxton
Yeah.
Whitehead announced
No.
his commitment to Arizona State University.
And I'm not surprised one bit of that. I follow college football quite closely, probably as close as I do the Pats. And like the NCAA's rules are literally crumbling as we speak. And so they can't uphold any of their rules. So I know the coaches of the teams are kind of against it, but there's nothing they can do. So, I mean, if somebody wants to go play NCAA hockey right now, there's not much you can do about it. So, and like they said, there's the lawsuit out already. That's going to win. NCAA's lost every lawsuit that they've gone to court with, and that's been multitudes over the last couple of years. So, and you know, they're hanging on to that amateur status, which is a joke now, as the football players are making millions of dollars, you know, cash money in their pocket.
Basketball players.
So yeah, but no, that's interesting. I'm not surprised at it one bit, but it's kind of cool that Braxton was the first kind of one to do that. And like he said, I heard an interview with him. He's like, yeah.
What do you think, Drew?
Arizona's kind of the school. Like they are the out there school.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be
Arizona
interesting. People are still saying that it's a gamble, but you know, with the points that you just made, Chris, it's basically a given, and
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see like how many guys are going to want to go there now because of the amount of money that they're getting. And is the Western Hockey League eventually going to have to put some sort of rule on where if you're with the Western Hockey League team, you can't leave and go until you're 19 or 20? We'll have to wait and see if that happens.
Well, that
it's just the very beginning, and that's something I know that has been floating around. But it's great to see, you know, Braxton Whitehead, who's a tremendous leader on the Pats, taking a leadership role in this NCAA thing too. And you know, I see him being a good player for that team eventually after he has what I think will be a great 20-year-old season with the Pats.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't think the money's as deep in the hockey
Not
side.
as lucrative quite yet.
No, but for a 20-year-old to go, you know, once he exhausts his eligibility here, to go down there or have options to stay here. If you're a Canadian, I don't want to go down to the States. I'll stay here. Or you do have the option to go to the
You
States.
have 4 years of school to go wherever you want.
Wherever,
basically.
exactly, right? But it's just nice to see. But yeah, there might have to be some rules. Like if you sign with a CHL team, you're with them until whatever, or you know, there's gonna have to be some sort of thing there. Like it'll have to play out like that. But it's nice to see that it's finally opening up to give kids options, right?
Well, we don't know just yet, right?
No,
like
no, for sure.
It was a verbal commitment to Arizona State.
It's not locked in.
And Alan Miller talked about it in Monday's press conference, like the amount of moving parts that were involved, and he was happy to share that with the media when he spoke on Monday morning. He said, essentially what happened was Braxton told Alan Miller, and maybe let's just go back a little bit to provide some backstory on this, because I was, you know, I appreciate that Braxton let me know about a month ago that this was something that he was wanting to do, and I'm happy everybody worked together to make sure it worked out for all parties. But Braxton, give him credit. He, on his own, decided to reach out to X amount of NCAA programs that he was potentially interested in attending, right? With a letter explaining who he is, the player he is, providing video, scouting reports, etc. Okay? Then Arizona State was the first team that reached back out to him and said, let's set up a meeting, etc., etc. So Braxton initiated all of this. They never approached him, right? Once they said, we want to make a verbal commitment, he then told Alan Miller, general manager of the Regina Pats, who then had to let the commissioner of the Western Hockey League, Dan Neer, know. Dan Neer then phoned the OHL and the Q. They got on a call with the CHL commissioner, or CHL president. From there, Bill Daly, the NHL, and the NHLPA were then brought in, and a big meeting took place. Then Brax's agent was looped in, as well as Arizona State, as well as Braxton's family as well. Like this didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight. There was a lot of moving parts. Big thanks and hats off to everybody that worked extremely hard together to find the right avenue to announce this, and what was going to be the future for Braxton, because at the end of the day, it's about the players, and Braxton deserves his opportunity to play at the NCAA level, especially after the season that he had last year. Excited to see what he does this year, but I just wanted to provide a little bit of backstory on this whole thing.
And if anybody out there has met Braxton Whitehead personally, that will come as no surprise, him taking that initiative, because he's wise beyond his years. Absolutely.
Yeah, he seems like a very smart,
for
very
sure.
smart kid. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Thanks for that, Dante. That's nice to see kind of how it all unfolds. And like you said, it's just not I'm committing to this school, because it's not anything like that, right? It's such a process for the first time, right?
Yeah, especially in the early days. And maybe one day it'll be a little bit smoother, but hey, he's a pioneer, Braxton Whitehead. Got to give him credit.
Yeah, there's got to be somebody who's got to do it, right? So might as well be you. I don't know. So Senja, that's interesting, and maybe another Boyd Gordon kind of maybe tip off from Colorado. We've had a few guys from Colorado.
How he came.
Yeah. So there's been a few guys come from Colorado.
Gordon.
Or Rhett Gordon.
Yeah, Rhett Gordon. I mean, Borevalis was one of his guys as well.
Yeah.
Mateo Michaels. He's been able to get a few American players. I'm sure he's scouted.
There was Setoff and Alkamov.
Probably, yeah.
As well. Those two guys came out of Colorado. Setoff.
Oh, yeah.
Alkamov. So going to the D, we kind of touched on that a bit. Anything else you got from the D you guys liked or look forward to?
Well, I think Aiden Wagner is going to be a good player in the future, but that's, I guess, not now.
Next year territory, but he's good. Well, next year beyond.
He'll be tough
Because he's
for
only
a
15.
16-year-old to play in the league next year,
Yeah. But he's got it there.
He's a 3-4-year guy, right?
Yeah, for sure. He's good.
Well, and I'm excited to see Colton Bridgman after the step that he took last year, kind of coming out of nowhere and just being such a reliable guy, and a guy that had to play a lot of minutes on a defensive group that wasn't super deep. And with that full year now, I mean, the future is super bright for him, and it'd be interesting to see.
216 now.
I was going to say,
it
sounds like he put on a lot of weight.
He looks quite a bit bigger, even in his
big.
equipment. Yeah,
He's
so
big.
he'll be a
He's
beast
pretty
out
thick
there
up there.
now. He
And
was a strong kid last year, so imagine him now.
Well, I want to give Colton a ton of credit for the work that he put in this offseason while also doing as much community work with the Regina Pats that he could. This guy missed one community event that we held all offseason, and on top of that, he was helping me out with his brother Kai at a lot of my baseball practices.
Nice.
Right? So I give Colton a lot of credit. He was the Scholastic Player of the Year, for the recipient from the Eastern Division, with a 93.5 grade point average. So incredibly smart young man. Graduated, obviously. Now he's an 18-year-old in the Western Hockey League. He doesn't have to focus on school and hockey. He can just focus on hockey. This is his first year of NHL draft eligibility due to his late birthday. He's a player who was listed by the Pats, signed at 16, played his first WHL game at 16, made the team full-time at 17, and now he's expected to be a top 4 defenseman at 18. So hats off to Colton Bridgman, the work that he has done and everything that he has meant to this community, from serving coffees and making coffees at McDonald's and at Tim Hortons and coming out to various different community events with the Pats. I know the Pats organization is extremely proud of Colton, and most recently signing up with Hockey Gives Blood to be a player ambassador, taking over from Parker Berg and Tanner Howe from last year. So Colton is going to be a player ambassador with Hockey Gives Blood, joining John Babcock as well.
Nice. Yeah, it's no surprise. I know the family quite well. So,
yeah, that's right. You know Greg, right?
Yeah, they're great people, so it's no surprise, and he's pretty motivated, and the family's quite sports oriented, so it's no surprise.
Volleyball players.
Yeah. So, and then Drew, you kind of touched on the goalies. You liked Carlton Pine's performance last game.
Yeah, I know it was a 3-1 loss against Brandon there, but he made And I think, Dante, you looked at me after I said it for the fifth time. That's one of the biggest saves I've seen in a long time. And you kind of looked at me like, okay, we know, but
no, which one?
Yeah, the one pad
Exactly,
one.
which
The one.
one?
Yeah,
It was
which
like 5
one?
or 6, bud.
His reflexes.
It
And,
could
I
have
mean,
easily
he
been-
was
Is he
really
quicker, Drew, or what?
He seems a lot quicker. He was really
a little
impressive
weight, or what do you
with the
think?
pads. I don't think he had much weight to lose. He's pretty slight, but he looks like he put in a lot of work too as well this offseason. And I know Ken spoke about it in the post-game show that he's come ready to play. And last year that starting position was up for grabs basically all season, but he looks like he wants it. It still is, and he looks like he really wants it. And that's taking nothing away from you and Huey. I just haven't had a chance to see Huey play yet this year, but he looked really good, and his reflexes were insanely quick that game. So I'm excited for him.
It's going to be interesting having two 19-year-old goalies
I think they probably both
for,
know.
for a rebuild.
Right. They both know, not the writings on the wall, but like it's one could be out of here.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Playing for their jobs.
Yeah.
Because you can't, like I said, you can't have two 19s on a rebuild.
I don't think so. Right. Like you got to have a younger guy here for next, potentially, to split duties next year. Right.
Exactly.
You don't want to be throwing in another 19 in 2 years that has no experience. Right.
Exactly.
So
And they both can't be 20 next year.
exactly.
Well, they can. They
Well,
will.
that
be,
would be rare.
But they can't be 20 on the same team
Yeah,
this
yeah.
year.
And I mean, I don't think you got a lot of options at 20 next year, but
Exactly.
is a goalie one of them? Is a goalie a wise choice of one of them? So, but
We'll see how the season plays out.
yeah, it'd be interesting.
What do you think, Dante?
Yeah. I hate talking about goalies, man.
He had his mic off. He was not interested in this chat whatsoever.
No, I turned the mic off for a reason. I was a former goalie when I played. I have a lot of respect for the position.
I know it's tough, right? There's only one of them.
Let's hope they're both good.
Let's
Because
go.
last year was not very good. So
Exactly.
There was
they-
just
they need to be
flashes.
better.
Neither of them could just get that consistency.
It's just such a hard position, so I don't like harping on it.
No,
So it's
I know,
hard.
right? And them going back and forth, it's really hard to get your
They both played
consistency.
38 games last year, believe it
There
or
you
not.
go.
Can you believe
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Even split.
So yeah, it's
And you
it's
know
tough.
what? Like for a bit, it was one game, the other game. One
I know,
game, the
right?
other
How do
game.
you-
But
how
then
do you
it
get in a
went
roll?
A couple games in a row, and then Pine would do a couple games in
Yeah.
a row. Like none of them could get hot. No one grabbed
know.
grabbed the job. Someone's got to
Yeah.
grab it.
Yeah,
You need a starting goaltender.
100%.
But,
If
as
you have
we've
two,
seen-
you have none,
But
right?
Chris, Drew, Kevin, as we see in the NHL, teams are doing this. They're splitting. Like it's become a new thing.
Yeah.
But most
The
teams
NHL's
do
different,
have a
though,
one, though.
right?
Like they have
I
one
know,
that's
but they
more
do,
of a
but,
one.
But the days of
Yeah.
the backup getting only 10 games are not
Yeah.
happening as much anymore.
No, for
Those
sure.
are 1A.
In the NHL.
Yeah, those are 1A and 1B, and I just don't think they were both number ones last year.
It's a
They
2A,
did have
2B.
spurts where they were number ones, but not throughout the whole
Consistent.
season where you could say they're both legitimate starters. So hopefully one of them can grab it this year. They both have the talent to do it because we saw Huey play some incredible games, and obviously Kelton played some incredible games too. So like you guys said, it's about the consistency, and they're both a year older, so it should be coming.
Yeah.
But going back to the training camp, the two 15-year-olds that were in camp, Drake Mooney, the draft pick, I thought he was really good.
I thought Mooney was the best goalie at camp.
So do I.
He's 15.
He was
He's going to be
poised.
good.
He was the best looking one at spring camp too.
Yes.
Was he not?
Yes,
right?
he was. I thought so too.
Yeah. That's
I went
'cause it
early
was-
for the one scrimmage.
because it was Mooney, Milwaukee, and Chase at spring camp, right? And Mooney being the youngest one was the best looking one from what I recall.
I agree. But I went for one of the scrimmages, and the vets that weren't playing the scrimmage were out shooting the puck, and Tanner Howe was out there,
Yep.
and a couple of coaches, and Mooney and a couple of other goalies. Mooney stayed out there with Tanner Howe for like 15 minutes after their ice time was done, and he was taking shots and chasing the puck and taking shots. So he wants to play. He wants the puck, and he's going to Prairie Hockey Academy this year, so that's
He's close.
nice and close.
If he pushes for a spot on the team next year, does that make a scenario where you have
I don't
one
know if
20-year-old
he's ready at
goaltender
16.
and one 16-year-old goaltender?
Here, it's funny. I've
Be tough.
asked a few scouts, Pat's scouting staff, about that are fairly smart, and essentially what I've been told is goalies need to play, and if you're 16, and you're just going to have a 20-year-old starter, whether it's Pine or Huey next year, and the 16's not going to play as much, he's got to go to a level where he's just going to play and get reps to continue to improve. We say that for all positions, but the goalie position, I think, is the most important one for that. Like, you can't have a 16-year-old goalie and come up and not play.
Yeah, just practicing, that's not enough, right? You need
it's not.
You need that game speed, right? Even if it is at a lower level.
Because goalie is like the position, whether it's helping you get faster and working and just reading. You know, I know you need the harder shots and stuff like that, but, you know, it's like Madden Malaka. Gets reassigned. He's not ready to play at the WHL level full-time just yet, right? You could roll with 3 goalies right now, but how would that benefit Madden? Might as well send him down to the SJHL where he can get some ice time and some opportunity with the Melfort Mustangs.
Especially this early. Give the 19s a chance to try to figure out who the starter is and then go from there.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, and you know what? Like, don't forget, Truce Chase is knocking on the door.
I was just going to say.
He's 17 now. He's no 7. Like, he'll be 18 next year, so he's got to, like...
He's got to play.
Sort itself out.
He's got to play too, right? So
he's got to play. He's got to be a starter. So I think Mooney will be a full-time Western Hockey League goalie at 17, right? They still have Kai Zarowski in their system as well as an 08.
Yeah.
He's 16, so we'll see what happens with him as well.
Where's Chase going? Where's Chase playing this year?
Cruz Chase?
Yeah.
I think he's back in Airdrie.
Is he back there? Yeah, I guess if
he's Alberta somewhere, I think.
Yeah.
17.
Lots of Alberta goalies.
Yeah.
Actually, all of them are. Yeah. Yeah. Mooney, Zarowski, Chase, Malaka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The future is all Alberta.
Yeah. Shout out to Brendan Millard, Pat Scout in Alberta. Young guy, does a good job. Tyrell Spitzer. Andrew Archer. Hey, we didn't talk about any of the staff moves.
Well, we got lots of time, lots of stuff to talk about yet.
Yeah, so anyways, well, it's anything else on ice that you've liked so far or want to touch on or haven't mentioned this fall? Just excited to get back in the rink, eh?
Yeah, actual games that count. Training camp was enough. Preseason was enough. Now I want to see games that count. Let them prove their worth.
Yeah, it's always exciting to get back there at the end of August, but after a while, even me not watching as much as I'd like to, it starts to drag a little bit, even when you're just following from home. So it's going to be exciting for you, Dante, and PA Friday night, and I'm looking forward to Saturday night. It's been basically 6 months since I've been up in the booth with you for a game that counts. So
game number
got to shake the rust off.
Got to
shake the rust off.
Yeah, you got to shake the rust off.
Well,
I'm not impressed right now.
I think we had a power play the other night, and I was reading off the penalty kill stats.
Stop it now. What about me?
I didn't hear you do anything like that, but we switched out a board real quick. That was impressive. So hopefully that's all sorted.
Looking forward to Friday's game in PA, that's for sure. Looking forward to the old Art Hauser. Looking forward to seeing Dace Durkatch Jr. in a Raiders uniform. Or Dace Durkatch. What am I saying?
He's not a junior.
But there is a Dale Jr., correct?
There is a Dale Jr.
Dale Jr., yeah.
Where's he at?
I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
Yeah. All right. Okay, do you want to touch on some off-ice stuff then? Lots of changes.
Let's do it.
What haven't we talked about since Summer Spectacular?
Well, there was a few off-season things that happened. Obviously, Tanner Howe getting drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah. That was quite neat. 46th overall, second-round pick of Pittsburgh. Signed on July 11th, so shortly after taking on June 29th. That was pretty exciting to see him finally land. It felt like a long time coming because of his late birthday. We were waiting for years. We knew it was going to happen, just didn't know where and how high. So that was fun. And then there were quite a few, I guess, off-season staff changes, I guess, for the Pats on the hockey ops side. It started April 15th. I was actually looking at the dates today. Alan Miller decided to retain Brad Haroff, and Ken Schneider offered them, and they both signed multi-year agreements to stay on as Brad Haroff, the head coach, and Ken Schneider as an assistant coach. Evan McFeeters was let go. He's now taken actually a job with the Prairie Hockey Academy, which is nice to see him get another opportunity. Love Evan. Loved working with him. Alan spoke about that, essentially said that he needed to get a more experienced associate coach, which he did end up getting in Ryan Smith.
That's a nice get.
I love Ryan Smith. So he He let go Daniel Wapple, decided to bring in a new goalie coach, Max Paddock, brought in Ryan Smith as associate head coach just in late July. Dale Derkach hired as assistant general manager. And then they had a restructuring of the scouting staff for the Regina Pats. They brought back Dale McMullen as head scout versus director of scouting, which is essentially the same position, just a different title. And for Dale Derkach, he's going to be Al's right-hand man, but he's also going to help oversee the player personnel, player development side.
Okay. And do we not have Thomas Bedard now?
Yes.
So watching out for the Pats on the West Coast, too, so that's exciting.
That's right.
He obviously knows how to raise hockey players, so yeah, that'll be cool to see what he can find.
Yeah, there's a few less scouts. It seemed like they cut back and maybe just focused on a few less guys or really focused on a little more full-time guys kind of thing. And, yeah, we noticed one guy out west.
Al's calling it the three-headed monster with the two Dales and himself doing the main full-time scouting. Yeah. And then you have your part-time scouts that include Tom Bedard in Vancouver as a BC area scout. And then you have a new scout that they brought in Alberta, Andrew Archer, who, from what I understand, guys, his son is projected to be a top 5 WHL pick this year. I heard he's, like, legit. And he's coaching his son this year in Alberta. It doesn't hurt to have a guy that's already coaching in the league to scout the league if he's already coaching in the league. Like, he knows the players better than anybody. And the cool thing with him, he played pro with Montreal, drafted by Montreal. He actually played for Al in Guelph. Al ran into him at a tournament that he was scouting because he was coaching, and they reconnected after so many years later when Al was the general manager in Guelph and was like, hey, blah, blah, blah. They reconnected, and then he was like, do you want to come on as a scout? And
there
then
you go.
Brought him in, right? Because he's from Toronto, but he's living in Western Canada now with work.
Oh, that's cool.
And then, so those were the only 2 additions on the scouting side. The other guys stayed on, except for a couple of guys moving on. Rusty Kutsak no longer with the club as a scout, and a couple of other scouts as well. Yep. I think Huck Parfenuck and John Calvano, Toby Tartaglione, Brad Lukovic, and Wayne Commodore. I think that's it.
That's it. That's quite a few.
Yeah.
Well, the list was a lot shorter.
But it is nice to have a few new eyes and a little more focus from the leader guys, like the Dales. And
it's weird. When I first joined the Pats organization in 2021, I actually went through most of the CHL sites and looked at their directories, and the Pats had the most scouts out of any team in the entire CHL, with the most scouts. But let's face it, you and I know this, and Alan Miller I think understands this as well. The team hadn't drafted very well, right? But you had the most scouts, so a change had to be made. Let's not put lipstick on a pig right here. But in saying that, I do think the team is heading in the right direction with the changes that Alan Miller made. And maybe some fans won't understand on how important the scouting side is, but Alan has mentioned it several times. You have to build through the draft.
It's the most important part of your franchise.
Your team has to grow up together. Yes. And I'm hearing this from guys at training camp. I'm so excited to be back to play with these guys for a 3rd season. I've made so many friends here. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't win if you're not friends and if you're not close in the room. Yep. And if you keep making trades and bringing guys in and out all the time, there's
revolving door. Yeah.
It's a revolving door. There's no chemistry. No. You know what I mean, Drew?
Well, and we saw, that play out in the spring with a team that Al has a ton of fingerprints on in the Moose Jaw Warriors, and that was a mentality that he had for them. And hey, look what they did. They were able to win it all.
Yeah,
that team and 3 20-year-olds that were together from start to finish.
Yeah. And that's Alan, and that's because that's what Alan Miller, he believed in that with that team when he was there, and now he believes with that with the Pats, so hopefully the same thing can play out.
That's what excites me about this year's team. You have Spencer, you have Whitehead, who have been here. Yeah. Whitehead's been here for 5 years. Spencer's been here for 4. He was acquired via trade at 17, right? So he's played at 17, 18, 19, and now 20. So this is his 4th season, right?
You got Howe.
And then you bring in Babcock, who's the new guy, but at least like the leaders, and then Howe, right? Chance has been here for a little bit too. Yeah. But at least they've been there. You know what I mean?
It's nice to have the continuity. The guys, like you talk about, the guys wanted to come back to play together. It's like a camaraderie family, basically. If you don't have that, who cares? If you don't have that, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, why bother? Why bother playing for you if I don't care?
Not everybody's going to get along with everybody in the room, but it's nice to have a big, there's probably bigger groups instead of being so individualistic, right?
Yeah.
When you're such a revolving door of a team.
And then that mentality just eventually gets passed down, and then it just carries through as a process, and it's just something that it becomes part of your team chemistry, and it just lasts for years and years and years as guys come and go.
Yeah, and like you said, Miller did a good job in Moose Jaw, and we saw that, and unfortunately Moose Jaw had to win, but maybe he can get that rolling this way.
Well, like Al said at the end of the year, they will be a good team, and what goes around comes around. Let's just leave it at that.
All right, so we got on ice, off ice.
Can we pause this?
Yep, we're paused.
Okay. You're up.
All right, time to wrap it up here. We've had a little bit of a break.
Doing some fantasy drafting.
Yeah.
Little bit of a gong show.
Yeah,
Heated
guys
arguments.
too long to pick and stuff like that.
A little bit of a gong show, but hey,
Unfortunately,
we're
I didn't
only
have a timer for this.
5 days into this thing, but whatever.
we'll get there maybe eventually.
Finish up this podcast,
Hopefully.
get it out, and we'll be up till 5 a.m. doing this draft.
I hope not.
No.
But anyway, so kind of let's look towards the season here. Kind of predictions. Like we talked about it earlier, the division is kind of wide open. We think the conference might be a little wide open. It basically comes down to, is this a playoff team or not? True.
I think especially Moose Jaw and Saskatoon, I think if they really fall off from last year, which obviously if you ask those two teams, they don't think they're that far off from where they were last year. I think there's a chance of maybe sneaking in. And that's, again, if you exceed expectations and the division, which we know is going to be weaker than last year, is substantially weaker. I think there is a chance, but you need to have Zach Moore have a really good year. You need to have Cole Temple take a big step. You need to have somebody solidify themselves as a starting goaltender, and that's just a few pieces. So it's possible. It's probably not a team that can compete in the playoffs and go far, but I mean, with where they are now, if they just make the playoffs, that is a big step for this team. But it is possible.
Kevin?
I agree. I don't know what to really look forward to other than hopefully everybody does step up like we talked. And I do think that we do have a playoff team if the stars align. Stay healthy, everybody steps up, we should be okay. Goaltending figures itself out. Some of the younger defensemen step up. A lot of the forwards step up, score some extra goals this year. We could be okay. Hopefully.
Dante?
Yeah, you know what? I think I talked about this on a couple of different interviews that I've done so far, guys. And to me, I think this Regina Pats team is a playoff team. I think I talked about it earlier on in this podcast, just in terms of where the division's at, where the conference at. I mentioned the only real juggernaut as it stands right now to start the season is the Medicine Hat Tigers. I thought they made some amazing, substantial moves this offseason in terms of the import players they brought in terms of getting a guy like Matthew Ward, in terms of bringing in 2 Finnish defensemen who are already NHL drafted from their import selection. So they're going to be really good. But I look at this Pats roster. I like the depth up front. The D is going to go through its growing pains. I think that's the Achilles heel. And the goaltending as well. So it's really going to come down to how the Pats can keep the puck out of their net. Last year, they scored 208 goals for, and their goals against was 300, right? The Pats need to lower that. And Kevin, you and I, of course, having watched the team extremely closely, and Chris and Drew would agree on this, and you and I have talked about this a lot over the last couple of years. I'm going into my 4th season as the voice of the Regina Pats. Through my 3 years with the team, they have been bottom 5 in goals against every single season, and bottom 5 in shots given up per game. right? Last year they gave up the second most shots against.
Too many shots against.
Too many shots, not enough shots for, and too many goals against. I like their forwards. I think they're going to be able to score, produce offense, grind teams down. Alan Miller said that he likes the intangibles that different lines can bring in terms of physicality, having a physical guy, a playmaker, and a sniper, or whatever, however you match it up, right? There's lots of different options for Brad Haroff to use in terms of different situations throughout the game. That's awesome, okay? But defensively and in key moments, the team needs to find a way to keep the puck out of the net. That means when it's a 1-goal game or a 2-goal game, right, you have to find a way to bar down because that's what the good teams do.
One big thing, sorry to interrupt the rotation that we had going, is if
What
they win a
rotation?
lot of games in October, if they win a lot of games in October, that's going to be key because there's 10 out of 11 on the road in November and the start of December, and then a very tough schedule in January. Like Dante pointed it out in the broadcast the other day that their toughest month in the regular season is probably January. And that comes after a long Christmas break and a month where you have a lot of road games. So you play a ton at home in October. If you can win those games, then you can put yourself in a good position and give yourself some confidence. And that's going to be another big key to maybe sneaking into the playoffs this year.
That's kind of what happened last year, right? They got off that decent start in September. Just couldn't carry it on. But like they said, maybe it was because some other teams were down. The Pats weren't missing any guys per se. This year they may be missing a guy or two. But yeah, it's gonna be hit and miss. I mean, you look at the playoffs last year, 31 wins got you into the playoffs. They had 22 last year. Can they improve?
They need to get to 34 again.
34. I think 34 is a stretch. I think
No, I don't think 30s.
So. I don't think you'll have to be a 500 team to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference this year.
Have to be close though.
Can I at least get 34, 30, and 4?
It would be nice to get 500.
Yeah.
No matter how that works out, but it would be nice to be 500 or better.
It would be, but I think you can sneak in with a sub 500 record. Not too far off, but I think you could in the Eastern Conference this year.
Yeah, it's going to be different, right? Because you're not going to have 3-4 teams that are at the top with, like last year, 50, 44, 40 wins, right? There's going to be one, and then we'll see how the other
one for sure
stack up, right?
One for
so
sure.
Maybe
a couple other ones that'll be decent, top end guys.
I don't think anybody's going to be terrible either, right? There isn't going to be the massive drop off of like Moose Jaw and Saskatoon are going to drop off, but they're not going to be at the bottom. I don't think. Like they both have pieces that'll keep them relevant and decent, right? So they're not going to be in Edmonton like 2 years ago, right? So, but with that, any more closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody for having me on today. Really looking forward to the upcoming season. Really looking forward to my 4th season calling Regina Pats games, and I'm really excited to see this team take another step. Also really excited for the first time in a while, the team has a first-round pick going into next summer's WHL Prospects Draft and
About
2
time.
first-round picks the year after. Thank
Even
you,
bigger, yay.
Saskatoon. Love the young players. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
To come to the rink, whether you lose or win, to see young players on the ice make mistakes and see the improvements and understand that, okay, he's got term. He's got years to get better, whether it's Temple at 17, looking forward to 18, whether it's more at 18, looking forward to 19, right? You're not just sprinkling in a whole bunch of 18 and 19-year-old players that are only going to be 2-year guys. So that's a lot of what I experienced early on in my tenure with the Pats. In the last half with Alan Miller, super excited to see the direction that this team goes. And love to have draft picks, love to have that draft capital. I love the internal competition with the prospects. I love having these conversations where we're like, okay, who's going to beat out who at camp? Those are fun conversations to have. From what I understand in years past when the Pats were in a little bit of a rebuild after the Memorial Cup, essentially it was taking what you could get.
Yeah, literally
Exactly.
just picking guys up off the scrap heap. No offense to those guys, but it was just whoever they could find, right? It was, you looked at the camp or the camp roster, and it was just like invite, list, right? Now you look at this, and 99% of them are drafted guys. There's what?
Yeah.
How many list guys are on this sheet? 3, right?
Not very many.
So
And I think what happened there was obviously you had the 2017 team, which was incredible going to the final, and then you're hosting the Memorial Cup, and then you're going to enter a rebuild and you have a full plan, but then you get the opportunity to draft a generational talent like Connor Bedard. So you almost had to fast track your rebuild there and kind of band-aid a rebuild together and scrap your original plan. And now it's nice to see that Alan Miller has the opportunity to kind of do a full rebuild. I mean, as much as you love to draft a generational talent, that's not happening anytime soon to the caliber that we had with Connor. But so, yeah, it's going to be exciting, and I'm really looking forward to the season. And I think we do have a potential postseason team here. We'll have to see. It's going to be tough, but they have the potential. And boys, if you're listening, you know who you are. Get your draft picks in.
All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap it up, and we'll see you at the rink this weekend. Good night, everybody.
Have a good one.